Empire. The mental game is as important as the physical one.
We have reports that are not just for those coaches, but we have an athlete report and a parent report that, so from the parent standpoint, I guess, it helps them understand maybe how to speak to their young athlete, how that athlete's motivated.
That's Andy Priestley, co-founder and CEO of Ryzer, where the mindset of an athlete is being gauged. This is the Future Sport Podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein. College sports entered a very complicated place a year ago with the emergence of name, image, and likeness laws that essentially allowed athletes to market themselves and not be in danger of losing a scholarship. That's the new, and it's a space Andy Priestley's company is engaged in. You'll hear about that. But there's also the old, athletic performance and how certain mindsets differentiate the good from the great. Our guest this week is Andy Priestley, who's the co-founder and the CEO of Ryzer, R-Y-Z-E-R, which is a platform that deals with mindset of athletes, transfers, all sorts of recruiting options in collegiate and professional sports. Hey, Andy, how are you? Great to meet you.
Yeah, I'm well. How are you?
I'm great. Hey, tell us a little bit about Ryzer. What do you guys do?
Yeah, so Ryzer was founded in 2006, and for the first decade, we focused primarily on sports camps for college coaches, with the goal of removing the tedious tasks that allowed them to do what they do best, which is coach kids. And so additionally, with that, helping with registration and the camp management, we would have a portal for those athletes and their parents to have an easy way to register, removing the paper process that was the way of, in the mid-2000s, everyone would pay via check and send in a piece of paper to the coach. And so what we looked to do back then was put together this product that just simplified the process for everyone. As you might imagine, in the last 15, 16 years, we've really had to change our business and adapt as we've grown. Our audience is still parents, coaches, athletes, teams, athletic departments at all levels now, high school to pro. Our products have expanded where we still have our flagship event registration system that's used by those coaches, parents, and athletes. We're in any given year, around 25,000 youth events will use our system, use our platform. That can be anything from an instructional event for a young child to a college showcase or a combine. From the athlete side, our alert system, it helps match that athlete with a relevant event based on where they're at in their athletic life cycle. And of course, and as you kind of mentioned, we have our Ryzer Mindset product. That's one that we brought on just a few years ago, where we partnered with Dr. Robert Troutwine, who founded this amazing athletic mindset business in the early 1980s. Started working with the Chiefs back in the day, and lucky enough to meet him and form a partnership that turned into us acquiring his Troutwine athletic profile, the TAP as we call it. It's famous for being used by Bill Belichick and the Patriots for the past 20 plus years. It's used by the last 3 Super Bowl champions and used in a variety of professional sports, and we're taking it down to the high school and college level.
Okay, tell us a little bit about it. What can you share about the Mindset program? Yeah,
so the Mindset assessment, it's about 100 questions. Also has a timed exercise. It discovers. I heard it best. I heard it best described by an NFL scout only a year or so ago. He said, "We like it because it tells us what's in the heads and hearts of athletes." And I thought that was just a really great way of kind of painting that what we look to do. So it's been given at the NFL Combine since the mid 1980s. Dr. Troutwine for years would go and would manually administer it to athlete after athlete, one-on-one, with paper, pencil. There was a handful that he would do verbally. But when we met him, he was already in the process of getting this electronic and online and making it something that didn't have to be manually administered. So what it does is it scores the 12 key performance traits that Dr. Troutwine has proven over the years are indicators of athletic success. Things like mental toughness, composure, grit. It's what it's most known for. It rates those on a 0 to 100 scale. It also does player comparisons. So if you've ever coached a group of players and then you have a crop coming in. So let's say you're a pro coach and you're looking at prospects that you've been scouting. They take the tap. It will show them and it'll compare them to any athlete you've coached in the past. So that in theory, if you like athlete A and you coach them for years, this other person is a 92% match to them, you're going to really like athlete B. And of course, vice versa. If you didn't enjoy coaching a given athlete, this next athlete, if they're very similar, they may not be a good fit for you as well. So a whole lot of features in there, a custom fit rating, which is real popular, where our coaches will rate the athletes they've coached in the past. And then it uses artificial intelligence to learn what the coach is specifically liking. We don't ask the coach for what they're liking about a given athlete, but our system then looks for commonalities and maybe a given coach really likes someone who has a high risk tolerance or high confidence, or it could be anything. Actually, sometimes you find where coaches like athletes that are low in some of these areas for whatever reason, but the system plays that out and then it makes recommendations based on the information that it gleans.
So does this kind of root out desire? That this helps you find out if this is someone who actually loves the sport and is not treating it like a job? Is that the purpose of it?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely get into some of that, and that is always tough. I will say that that is one spot where, again, we work with about five, sometimes I think we 6 this year NFL teams. We help them in that scouting process going into the draft. And that is definitely one thing that they will look to root out for sure is in scouting versus maybe recruiting on the college level. Scouting is about elimination more than it's about discovery, right? I mean, we already know who the prospects are coming in, and so you're looking for those types of things to see are there some flags here? Are there some red flags that we should look at? And if the TAP can help identify those, that's just definitely one area in which we look to help our coaches with is to try to. We use a traffic light system, so keep it nice and simple, so that our coaches can quickly look at when all these prospects. We'll test about 600 the NFL for the NFL draft that's upcoming. And so obviously a green light with various versions of a plus sign that we can add on to that if they're really strong. So you can get up to 3 pluses. The yellow light will start to tell us some of the things that you're talking about right there, what you're asking about, with, of course, a red light, meaning you better be real certain that you like this person because from our standpoint, there's some risk involved. So yeah, it definitely looks for the desire, but it's I wouldn't paint it with just that brush.
Okay. All right. Let's get back into some of the other things that you're doing, like the help with the event management and the camps. We've had a very unusual last couple of years. Can you kind of talk about just generally sports and events and camps amid a pandemic?
Yeah, that's been really tough, as you might imagine. And so you hear people talk about businesses and how businesses enjoy stability and certainty. And there has been no certainty in the last 2 years, not just for businesses like ours, but for the teams, for the parents, for the athletes, for the coaches. The certainty, the stability has not been there. And so, yeah, of course, it all hit for us, just like it did for everyone else in mid-March of 2020. We had already been taking registrations for thousands of events. We had many summer events already sold out at some big universities. And when the pandemic came, we all had to adapt, which is one feature that Mindset rates on that scale of 1 to 100 as we look at adaptability, because it's important in every aspect of life, especially athletics. But as far as the events went, we had to adapt very, very quickly. We had to issue a lot of refunds. We had to we updated our return policies, our refund policies. We worked with our coaches to try to just basically keep these open lines of communication to be able to do what was best for them, but to also be able to do what was best for those registrants. And it's something that even now today, as we sit here and we look to the summer 2022 camp season, there should definitely be one. We strongly believe that this is a good opportunity. Without these camps, the kids weren't able to be seen. These prospective athletes weren't able to be seen. That really hurt from a recruiting standpoint. And at the younger youth level, the instructional camps, there was a lot of instruction and just kind of base knowledge in given sports that was essentially they lost a year. You see that on the courts and the fields today. And, there's still a lot of uncertainty. A lot of rules continuously change at these universities as far as COVID guidelines, but we're trending in the right direction.
Let's get into some modern recruiting, because I'm curious just your take on all this stuff since you started this 16 years ago, and here it is today, and we're in a very different world in recruiting. How do you guys look at the transfer portal as it has become a massive, massive touch point in collegiate sports?
Yeah, that has really been a game changer, hasn't it? So just in the last couple of years, you've seen so many changes. I've mentioned adaptability, not just for us again, but for the schools and the athletes, and the transfer portal and the rule changes around it have been a great example. It's been a complete game changer. So what we have seen there is we've got a couple of great partners in the industry that have some really nice transfer portal products that we have actually blended our mindset product into through integrations. And when you see these athletes hit the transfer portal for the first time in many of their lives, they're really out on their own. When you humanize it a bit, when they were in high school, they always had their high school coaches and counselors and such in their corner and pushing for them and helping them navigate that, looking at that next college, or that college that they might attend. When they're in college, they had that college support staff around them and all the good support that they're able to give that college athlete. But as soon as their name hits that transfer portal, they're essentially, and it's probably not the greatest term to use, but they're essentially a free agent, and they're out there uncommitted to essentially a team at all. And so this is the first time for many of them in a long time that they're kind of on, that they might be out on their own. So we invite everyone when they hit the transfer portal. Right now we're doing it just for football. We're in the process of ramping this up to get to all of the sports. But we invite them to take our mindset assessment, typically within an hour or two of them entering the portal through our partnerships. And then our college coaches that use our platform, which depending on the sport is roughly a third of the college programs out there, then they're able to get a fresh look at these athletes and see, are they stronger now from where they were when they were coming out of high school and maybe a good fit for their team, or are there things that they need to improve on? And at the college level, different than the scouting level of the pros, we're looking to help identify more of where surprises could be, because everyone's going to have areas for improvement, but we want to eliminate those surprises so that the coaching staffs of schools can set up the proper tools and processes in place to help every one of these student athletes when they're transferring in, who knows what they've been through at their previous school, but to put a support system around them that will give them the best chance to succeed when they get to that school.
Is there any inverse of that where athletes are looking at the schools themselves that they could get information about what would be the right fit for them as they make these types of decisions?
Not specifically, but a big part of what the platform lets those athletes understand themselves better. We have reports that are not just for those coaches, but we have an athlete report and a parent report that, so from the parent standpoint, I guess, it helps them understand maybe how to speak to their young athlete, how that athlete's motivated, how to talk to them in times of coming off of a big failure or a big loss. And for the athlete themselves, a lot of it is discovery for them. I mean, a lot of these folks don't maybe self-reflect a ton. And so what our assessment does, and specifically that athlete report afterwards, is it's going to help them kind of uncover some things and maybe think about some things that they maybe didn't realize that they put importance on, which maybe indirectly would help them when they're looking in the evaluation of schools and coaches.
All right, so let me ask you a broad question. Since you started this in 2006 and here we are in 2022, how are athletes different now than they were back then?
A really good question. We, of course, test that. One of the stats that we've seen, one of the trends that we've seen, which had been a bit concerning, and I know we have this published out on our website, is when we test those 500 to 600 athletes leading up to the NFL Combine every year, one of the things that we'd seen is a dramatic drop in mental toughness over the past 10 years. And it was pretty consistent. And, you can dive into what the reasons for that may be. And of course, it's over 10 years. So you can't just point to something like COVID. This is actually mainly pre-COVID. But the mental toughness, and we've talked to a number of NFL and college folks about this as well, that they can kind of echo that, the ones that have been around for quite a while. And so we have seen a drop there. And what will be interesting to see as we go forward is watching the impact of COVID and these situations that these athletes have been in. I'm curious to see if that actually may increase some of the mental toughness types of characteristics and traits that we look at, because they've had to overcome so much. I hear a lot about how the stats so far, not through us, but more general stats, are about how youth are depression, anxiety, those types of things are surging because of COVID. And I know that lots of stats about school closures and all those things and what that does from a learning standpoint. But I'll be really, we won't know the answer to this for years and years, but I will be interested to see, because I'm impressed, I guess, hopeful that these athletes will actually be able to, and these young, not even just athletes, these young students will be able to see this and grow through this and overcome these challenges and maybe in the end make them stronger.
Can you expound on that a little bit? What do you mean by you're seeing a drop in mental toughness? Like, in what way are you seeing that?
Well, we literally measure mental toughness. That is one of the stats that our CAP, Strapline Athletic Profile, measures. And so that is one of the characteristics that we test for. So the numbers show from our test that mental toughness has gone down pretty steadily over the last 10 years. As we're getting ready for the Combine this year, this will be last year, I guess, they did not, we weren't at the Combine last year. There was no mental testing. Everything was done electronic. So we tested all of our players electronically. Same thing will happen again this year. But as we're preparing to test these soon-to-be NFL athletes, we'll see if that trend continues, if it does continue to drop. But our stats show pretty clearly that mental toughness has gone down.
That's interesting. Are you seeing this in the younger athletes too? I assume you are. The high school kids heading into college as well, that's correlating there? Or are you just seeing this as they enter into a professional marketplace?
Well, I'm speaking specifically to the professional, or leading up to the professional. So these are who we're testing in this is the high-end college athlete about to become a professional. But, a lot of times that does start down at those lower levels. I know I can just, it's speculation on my part to say why those things would happen. But, you could come up with quite a number of different scenarios that may have an impact. You hear about, the trophy generation of everybody wins. You hear about, helicopter parenting. You hear about just a lot of these types of maybe general ideas that have made it, maybe in some cases some over-involvement of parents, and again, theories, that's not, I can't speak to specifically what has maybe caused that, but our stats have definitely shown that on that upper college level going into the pro level.
It's interesting. Andy Priestley is the CEO and the co-founder of Ryzer. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
On the next Future Sport podcast, how about putting AI in the hands of not only the odds makers, but the bettor?
You get to have complete control over what you think decides the game. It's simple as a drop-down menu. You pick those stats. You basically hit analyze and project. And at that point, the artificial intelligence does everything else.
That's Mike Yam, NFL Network anchor and reporter who founded Pine Sports, a company that he believes will even the playing field for the savvy sports bettors. That will do it for this episode. As always, the future is now. This is the Future Sport Podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein.